are you?
I'm Punky Brewster. And who are you?
I'm the manager of this building, Henry Wannemont.
Nice to meet you, Hank.
Remember when a spunky 7-year-old with rainbow shoelaces and mismatched everything could capture America's heart? Well, buckle up because we're diving deep into Punky Brewster, the 1984 sitcom that somehow made child abandonment appointment television. Today we're exploring how this colorful chaos became the ultimate found family fever dream that defined an entire generation's childhood. Let's talk about the premise of this show. Punky Brewster premiered in September 1984 on NBC, right smack in the middle of Reagan's family values era, when networks were desperately trying to prove they cared about wholesome content. Created by David W. Duclon after he had a real-life encounter with an abandoned child, this show took one of childhood's worst nightmares and somehow turned it into primetime gold. Our pint-sized hero Punky, played by Soleil Moon Frye, gets dumped by her mother in a Chicago shopping mall and ends up squatting in an empty apartment with her trusty golden retriever Brandon.
Weeks ago, my mom said we were going on a trip. So we piled up in her car and drove her to Chicago. Mom parked the car at a shopping center and went in.
Yes?
She never came back.
Because nothing says heartwarming family entertainment like a 7-year-old living alone in urban decay, right? Enter Henry Wannemont, played by George Gaines, a grumpy widower photographer who discovers this tiny trespasser and somehow becomes her foster father. The show basically asked, what if Home Alone but with more emotional trauma and a happy ending? Punky's signature mismatched socks, rainbow suspenders, and that infectious Punky Power catchphrase masked some seriously heavy themes about abandonment, foster care, and what it means to build a family from scratch. This was appointment television that made kids feel better about their own family dysfunction while teaching parents that sometimes the best families are the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into. Now let's dive into the talented folks who brought this rainbow-colored chaos to life. Because assembling a cast for a show about found family takes some serious chemistry. Starting with our leading lady, Soleil Moon Frye, was just 7 years old when she landed the role that would define her entire childhood. This kid had to carry an entire series on her tiny shoulders, delivering lines about abandonment and foster care while somehow making it all seem like the greatest adventure ever. No pressure, right? George Gaines played Henry Wannemont, the cantankerous widower who goes from get off my lawn to surrogate grandfather faster than you can say character development. Fresh off his stint as Commandant Lassard in Police Academy, Gaines brought this perfect mix of gruff exterior and marshmallow heart that made you believe a grumpy old photographer could become the world's most unlikely father figure. Then there's Cherie Johnson as Punky's best friend Cherie, the voice of reason in a world gone mad with rainbow fashion choices. While Punky was busy being the optimistic tornado, Cherie was the kid who actually remembered to do homework and worry about normal 7-year-old problems. Susie Garrett played Cherie's grandmother Betty Johnson, serving as the neighborhood's moral compass and the closest thing to a traditional maternal figure in Punky's chaotic world. And we can't forget Ami Foster as Margot Kramer, the spoiled rich kid who provided the perfect foil to Punky's scrappy street wisdom. Every sitcom needs that one character you love to hate, and Margot delivered with her prissy attitude and designer everything, making Punky's thrift store chic look even more endearing by comparison. Together, this ensemble created a found family that felt genuine despite the absolutely bonkers situations they found themselves in week after week. Here's where things get real, folks. Beneath all those colorful outfits and Punky Power catchphrases lurked some seriously heavy themes that would make today's network executives break out in cold sweats. This wasn't just a cute kid show, it was a weekly exploration of childhood trauma wrapped in a bow made of rainbow suspenders. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Child abandonment was literally the show's entire foundation. Week after week, we watched a 7-year-old process being dumped by her mother while somehow maintaining an impossibly sunny disposition. The show didn't just mention it and move on, they really dug into what that kind of rejection does to a kid's psyche. Punky's constant fear that Henry might leave her too became a recurring theme that hit way too close to home for kids dealing with their own family instability.
We don't let her take me.
Miss Mitchell, I cannot allow you to take Punky. I promised her no orphanage, and there won't be any orphanage, so there.
Then there was The Perils of Punky, the infamous cave episode that traumatized an entire generation of viewers. What started as a harmless camping trip turned into a legitimate survival horror situation with Punky and Cherie trapped in a collapsed cave, facing hypothermia and potential death. This wasn't your typical sitcom misunderstanding. This was genuine life-or-death drama that had kids hiding behind couch cushions. The show also tackled stranger danger, drug awareness, and other very special episode topics with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Remember when they literally had Nancy Reagan show up to tell kids to just say no?
No. Cherry? No.
Or the refrigerator episode where a kid gets trapped and nearly suffocates? These weren't lighthearted teaching moments. They were full-blown PSAs disguised as entertainment. Somehow, the writers thought mixing genuine childhood fears with laugh tracks was the recipe for appointment television. And honestly, they weren't entirely wrong. Now let's talk about the gloriously budget-conscious world of 1980s television production, where creativity had to make up for what the wallet couldn't cover. Punky Brewster was a masterclass in making rainbow-colored magic happen on a shoestring budget, and boy, did it show in the most wonderfully cheesy ways possible. First off, let's address Punky's signature rainbow aesthetic versus the supposedly realistic Chicago apartment setting. The girl dressed like a walking Lisa Frank sticker explosion while living in what looked like a furniture showroom floor model. Henry's apartment was so perfectly staged that you half expected a salesperson to pop out and ask if you'd like to finance the sofa set. Nothing screamed, "We built this on a soundstage in Burbank," quite like those pristinely weathered brick walls and suspiciously well-lit urban decay. The opening credits were pure 1980s television gold, featuring that impossibly bouncy theme song paired with montages of Punky doing punky things in slow motion. They managed to make a 7-year-old's daily routine look like a music video, complete with rainbow graphics that probably gave the editing team seizures. The fashion choices were a costume department's fever dream of what they thought kids actually wore, which apparently involved combining every bright color known to humanity into a single outfit. And then there's Brandon the Golden Retriever, who was honestly the most professional actor on the entire set. While the human cast was busy delivering lines about emotional trauma and family dynamics, Brandon was there being consistently adorable and never missing his marks. That dog carried more scenes than some of the guest stars, proving that sometimes the best special effect is just a really good boy who knows where the camera is. Let's dive into the episodes that either made us laugh, cry, or question why our parents let us watch this emotional roller coaster in the first place. Because nothing says quality children's programming like putting a 7-year-old through situations that would challenge a seasoned therapist. First up, Fenster Hall, the episode that gave kids everywhere a crash course in the harsh realities of the foster care system. When social services temporarily removes Punky from Henry's care, she ends up in a group home that makes prison look cozy. This wasn't just a plot device, it was a full-blown exploration of what happens to kids who don't get lucky enough to find their own Henry Warnemont. The episode basically said, "Hey kids, remember how good you have it with your found family because the alternative is terrifying." Then there's the infamous Perils of Punky Cave episode that traumatized an entire generation. What started as a fun camping trip turned into genuine survival horror when Punky and Cherie get trapped in a collapsed cave. We're talking hypothermia, dehydration, and the very real possibility that our rainbow-clad hero might not make it out alive. This wasn't sitcom peril. This was National Geographic survival documentary levels of danger, complete with hallucinations and near-death experiences. The Just Say No episode deserves special mention for its sheer audacity in having Nancy Reagan herself show up to deliver anti-drug messages. Because nothing says authentic storytelling like the First Lady randomly appearing in a Chicago apartment to chat with a foster kid about cocaine. And who could forget the refrigerator episode where a child gets trapped and nearly suffocates? Sweet dreams, kids! These episodes proved that Punky Brewster wasn't afraid to go places that would make modern children's television executives run screaming from the building. let's talk about that impossibly catchy theme song that's probably playing in your head right now.
Or just a little unkind, don't know.
Because nothing says traumatized child finding hope quite like the most upbeat jingle this side of a McDonald's commercial. The Punky Brewster theme was pure sonic sunshine, a relentlessly cheerful earworm that completely ignored the show's darker undertones in favor of pure 1980s optimism. The opening credits were a masterpiece of cognitive dissonance, selling the found family dream with montages of Punky doing adorable kid things while that bouncy theme played in the background. We got shots of her roller skating, playing with Brandon, and bonding with Henry, all edited together like a feel-good music video that conveniently skipped over the whole abandoned by mother in shopping mall backstory. The credits basically screamed, "Look how fun homelessness can be when you're plucky and wearing rainbow suspenders." What made this even more surreal was how the opening evolved season to season, gradually adding more characters and situations while maintaining that same aggressively upbeat tone. By later seasons, they were cramming in shots of very special episode moments like they were selling a greatest hits album of childhood trauma. The song itself became the kind of tune that got permanently lodged in every 80s kid's brain, creating this weird Pavlovian response where hearing those opening notes would instantly transport you back to a time when sitcoms could traumatize you and make you smile simultaneously. This was appointment television marketing at its finest, packaging heavy themes in the most digestible, hummable wrapper possible. The theme song promised fun and family, while the actual show delivered complex lessons about abandonment, resilience, and what it means to create your own support system when the world lets you down. Now let's dig into the lesser-known facts that even the most dedicated Punky Power fans might have forgotten, because every beloved 80s sitcom comes with its share of production chaos and creative problem-solving that would make modern showrunners weep. The show was actually inspired by a real abandoned child that creator David W. Duclon encountered, which explains why the premise felt so authentic despite the rainbow-colored wrapping. Duclon didn't just wake up one day and think, "You know what television needs? More child abandonment storylines." He witnessed genuine trauma and somehow convinced NBC that turning it into family entertainment was a brilliant idea. Soleil Moon Frye's growth spurt between seasons created some serious continuity headaches for the production team. The kid who started the show as a tiny 7-year-old was suddenly hitting puberty faster than the writers could keep up with, leading to some creative camera angles and wardrobe choices that tried to maintain that eternal childhood vibe. Nothing says sitcom magic quite like trying to make a rapidly maturing teenager look like she's still in elementary school. George Gaines was initially reluctant about working with children, which is ironic considering he became television's most unlikely father figure. The man went from commanding police academy cadets to managing a precocious 7-year-old, proving that sometimes the best casting choices happen when actors step completely outside their comfort zones. The show's cancellation after 4 seasons led to one of the weirdest transitions in television history when it moved from NBC to syndication. The syndicated episodes had a completely different feel, like they were made by people who had only heard about the original show through secondhand descriptions. It was Punky Brewster in name only, missing that original magic that made the premise work, despite its obvious insanity. Let's talk about how a show about an abandoned kid in mismatched socks somehow became a cultural phenomenon that influenced everything from fashion trends to social conversations about family structures. Because Punky Brewster didn't just entertain, it accidentally started movements. Punky Power became way more than just a catchphrase. It evolved into a legitimate empowerment slogan that kids actually used in real life.
I got Punky Power!
This wasn't just marketing speak. It was a rallying cry for misfit kids everywhere who felt like they didn't quite fit into traditional molds. The phrase gave children permission to be different, to embrace their quirks, and to believe that being unique was actually a superpower. Pretty heavy stuff for a 7-year-old in rainbow suspenders to carry, but somehow it worked. The fashion influence was absolutely undeniable, turning mismatched everything into an actual trend that parents had to pretend was intentional. Suddenly, kids everywhere were mixing patterns, wearing different colored socks, and throwing together outfits that looked like they fell out of a crayon box. Punky made I Got Dressed in the Dark into a legitimate style choice, and somehow convinced an entire generation that more was definitely more when it came to color coordination. But the real cultural impact was how the show handled serious topics for young audiences without talking down to them. This was television that trusted kids to understand complex emotions and situations, paving the way for later shows that would tackle difficult subjects with similar honesty. Punky Brewster proved that children's programming didn't have to be dumbed down to be effective. The show's influence on later found family sitcoms is impossible to ignore. From Full House to Modern Family, you can trace a direct line back to Punky's blueprint of unconventional families, proving that love matters more than biology. It normalized the idea that families come in all shapes and sizes, making it easier for future shows to explore non-traditional family structures. And that's our deep dive into the rainbow-colored chaos that was Punky Brewster. Drop your favorite Punky Power moment in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten 80s sitcom adventures. Until next time, keep spreading that Punky Power, and thanks for watching.